So, I'm gonna be honest. I've been so busy that I genuinely have not, I have not genuinely, thought of finishing my unfinished scripts for, my next couple of videos. They're happening, don't worry. Actually, worry, because I can't promise stuff. I've made plans for this channel and they have fallen through and crash and burn. So, be cautiously optimistic for these videos. And I'm not going to tell you what they are because I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. But yeah, this video is just going to be a bit of a yap session, and it's going to be very chill and laid back because I simply want to just get some thoughts out there. And these thoughts are K-pop opinions, but I'm not really a big fan of controversial opinions or very, very unpopular opinions and being dramatic with it. No, I'm not really a fan of that. These are just K-pop opinions, and as a disclaimer, none of these are overtly extremely hot takes. These are just very mildly mild takes, not very spicy, not very cold either, but yeah, these are going to be very, very hopefully thought-provoking takes, and there's not gonna be much structure to this video, so yeah, I should stop rambling right now. So let's talk about the first point, or the first opinion that I have to talk about. So the first one I would like to talk about is that I think Stray Kids, specifically right now, I think their best music comes from when they're not held down by the traditional Korean comeback structure. I think when they're not expected to, have a commercial success, I think you can genuinely see their ability to risk and be open to risk, and actually address and mend their music to the criticism that they get. So, for example, a big criticism that they get is that they're too formulaic, that the members sing at certain times and there's a specific order that hasn't really changed. I think Hollow addresses that, as different members are singing at different times. And I think another criticism that I've seen, I don't know if this is as prevalent, but Ian, Sungmin, and Lino, well, more specifically Ian and Sungmin, not having as much of a part to play in their Korean comebacks, but I feel like these two really stood out on the album, or the mini album, overall, throughout the whole project. I think they really vocally gave it their best. And I think another thing that they approached is that their main title track being a lot more calmer, a lot more somber than even their other Japanese and Korean title tracks, because Giant was very upbeat, very punchy, very, very upfront, but Hollow is humble, quiet, reflective, and it's you notice that it's a 3 minute 30 second song, and it's probably their longest title track in a while, and it shows that there might be a lot more room to be a lot more creative, and a lot more free to be artistic in their Japanese comebacks. But I don't think it's only in the Japanese comebacks, but also in the special the special comebacks, like Hop, and the mixtape that was released, the Dominate mixtape. Truman was such an interesting thing to study, from a technical standpoint. The production was so interesting. The lyricism was so cool. And I think Escape was so interesting to listen to vocally. Burning Tires feels like, for some reason, it feels like classic Stray Kids. And it feels like something that I would see out of their old discography. And As We Are is so beautiful to listen to. The way Lino and Sungmin sing and the lyrical content, it's just a beautiful song. And seeing each of the members take part in writing, you can see, and majority of the songs are over 3 minutes. So I feel like they truly can be creative when they're not held down by that traditional commercial Korean comeback structure. Because As We Are, I think out of all four of them, is my favorite. It's so deep, it's so reflective, it's so beautiful, and I'm not gonna lie, I want Sungmin and Lino to, especially Sungmin, to keep writing, because I'm going to talk about the solos in a few seconds, but I do feel like Sungmin as an idol is really standing out this year. His vocals, I feel like we need to talk about his vocals. They're gorgeous, but his writing in As We Are and his own solo is so beautiful, and it's so interesting. And I feel like we wouldn't have gotten this if we were in a traditional Korean comeback structure. And I think it just goes to show that I feel like they produced some of their best work. And speaking of their best work, I think their OSTs happen to be some of the best in their discography. And I think because they're not held down by the worries of being commercially successful, I think there's a lot more room for creativity and risk. And that being said, I think their solos are so reflective of their personality. And yes, I think each of them reflect their personalities very well. And I think Sungmin's solo is so beautifully written, and it's so vulnerable, and it's so honest. And I'm so excited for his solo debut. As much as I love all the members equally, and they're all so incredibly talented, but ever since I have seen and looked into Sungmin's solo work, I've been so excited to see what's next and what he has to offer, because he is so incredibly talented. That being said, I think I've said enough, and I want to move on to the next opinion. I want to discuss Le Seraphim's English discography, or the English versions. Actually, not the English versions, but songs that are entirely made in English. I think they're pretty good. The only critique I have of them is that they're very repetitive. So songs like Come Over, 1-800 Hot and Fun become very repetitive, and you don't get a sense of the world building that the song is trying to establish. And I know world building is a crazy term when talking about songs, but I feel like they give us so much good material that we just never really explore more of it. Like Come Over and its production is so well thought out that I would want 3 minutes of that song to be played. And I want more lyrical content to be provided, because I think the production, especially on 1-800 Hot and Fun, is so well done too. And I would like more story and not how do I explain this? I want more world building. I want more story. I want more lyrical content. I don't want it to be repetitive, because then it just makes the song a lot less replayable for me. So that being said, they're not bad by any means. I just hope that we have more lyrical content in their English songs eventually. So yeah. Another thing I have to say is that I think This Is For by Twice, and I mean the album, is kind of, in my opinion, a masterclass on how to do English albums in K-pop, or just English songs in K-pop. I feel like This Is For keeps the identity of Twice in mind, and they understand the members, and they understand where the group is at mentally, physically, and emotionally, and it respects the maturity of the members, but it also, again, it's in English, but it feels like Twice, but in English. I think a lot of the times, a lot of K-pop idols, not K-pop idols, I think a lot of K-pop groups have English songs, or have English, not albums, but right, I was going on the right track, songs that don't really fit their identity, or don't even come close to their identity as a group. For example, I don't want to be mean, but Lose My Breath by Stray Kids, it doesn't feel like Stray Kids. And Come On by NMIX feels nothing like NMIX. But This Is For by Twice, the album, feels like they understood the concept and understood the members and created an album in English that still represented what Twice stood for. And I think that's such an important thing to understand, because K-pop idols can sing in English if they want to, right? Who's to say that they don't deserve to sing in English, right? And I believe that a lot of K-pop songs are either kind of dumbed down, or a lot of English songs for K-pop idols are very dumbed down or simplified, or very much don't fit the concept or the ethos of the group in any way. And I think it's fair to say that K-pop idols deserve to say or sing interesting material, and even deep material in English if they want to. If they want to discuss something very interesting in English musically, I think they deserve to do that. And I think This Is For kind of shows us that you don't have to change your identity or risk the identity of the group and what it stands for, and the ethos of it, in order to cater to a Western audience. And I don't know, you can argue that This Is For is not like pandering to the West, but or it is, I don't know. That's a discussion that we can have in the comments. But I do feel like this is the best example of having, or at least in recent times, that this album really feels like Twice just in English. And I think that's so important to understand, that it is important to understand the groups that you're producing and writing for. And this feels like, I think this album further cements how much Twice has grown up in the last 10 years, and how they will further continue to grow and changes people, and I think this album really cements how far they have come as artists. The next thing I want to discuss is short songs in K-pop, and I know this is a very divisive topic, and I do want to provide some nuance. I don't think K-pop songs that have short runtimes are inherently bad. I do think short songs can be actually very impactful. They can test the technical skills of an artist. It can be an artistic challenge to see if you can create a world in a limited amount of time, and I think some songs work best on a short runtime. And even though I no longer support this group or even listen to this group, I do think Kiss of Life's Igloo was my primary example of short songs that work, because the concept itself was it was not shallow per se, but the concept of Igloo it felt like very much like a statement piece. The song felt like a statement piece, and it being longer than 2 minutes and 11 seconds, I guess it would have worked, but it just fits. Igloo it worked. So again, I'm sorry for bringing them up, but again, that was my primary example last year, and, I still think that, some songs are meant to be 2 minutes, because of or the messaging of that song. So, that being said, I do believe that short songs also have cons to them, that being sacrificing storytelling, sacrificing lyrical content, and sacrificing depth, whether that be story-wise or production-wise. So, an example I want to provide is ENHYPEN's With or Without You, and that song basically discusses the narrator telling his love interest to stay away. I don't remember, but I think that's what it is. And again, I know the boys have a vampire concept, so I think that works into their lore. I'm not very familiar with ENHYPEN's lore. I just knew that from a few clips from what I've seen from YouTube Shorts, it's very vampire-y, and it's I'm not gonna say it's giving Twilight, but you know what I mean. Anyway, that being said, the production feels like it stays in one place. I feel like because the song is 2 minutes and 25 seconds, the song feels kind of shallow. We don't actually dig out what the narrator's trying to establish and what the production's potential truly is. I feel like we're not able to explore what the producers intended because first of all, the song goes by so fast, we're running at the speed of light, and this is clearly a story. This is clearly a love story, whether that is toxic or not, that is up to the listener. But I feel like we're having a story, and the fact that we have to scrunch it, we have to squeeze it down to 2 minutes and 25 seconds, I feel like, again, we sacrifice storytelling, we sacrifice the ability to further the impact of that story with not being able to give in-depth production. And I think, again, we sacrifice world building of interesting lore to, make sure that it does well on TikTok. And again, I have no problems with K-pop songs doing well on not K-pop, doing well on TikTok. It's just that I do genuinely believe that you can have something go viral on TikTok and still keep artistic integrity. Because I felt like after I listened to that track, I felt like something was missing. I felt like there was more to be desired, production-wise. And I do believe that short songs sacrifice art. I think it really does. Here's another thing. I do know, and I do believe that short songs, again, I want to provide an example of a positive way of using short songs. If it's meant to, provide a level of experimentation, then I'm fine with songs being shorter. And again, I know some of you will say, you're being biased, and I admit, I am. It's because I've been exposed to a lot of their work, and the group I'm talking about is NMIXX. I do think NMIXX does short songs well, because I feel like there's an intention when creating that piece of music about what they want to do. Because songs like Papillon, I'm sorry if I mispronounced it, and songs like Reality Hurts, for example, I don't know, I feel like they worked so well on a shorter format because of its intention, because of its goals musically. I think when you establish a goal to kind of experiment, you're kind of intentionally exploring out of what is, I don't know, quote-unquote normal in music. So again, there's a lot of intention when it goes, especially in NMIXX's modern, and I mean like modern meaning like FE304, post FE304 works. There's a lot of intention when choosing and understanding and not cultivating, but creating their B-sides and tracks. So again, I know I sound very biased, and forgive me because I am, because I as a human cannot be unbiased, but I'm not trying to like put down an hyphen. I just feel like the production in With or Without You was too good to have been robbed of its proper runtime. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, before I kind of make a mess of things, I think we should talk about something else. And that something else is Wonyoung. I don't know if many people know this, or if this is really common knowledge. I'm not sure. I'm not a dive. But I do appreciate Wonyoung and her existence. But she's a writer, and I would say that she's a very talented writer. She's pretty young, and I think she has a pretty good pen. She's very, very good. I think her looks and her aura overshadows a lot of her skills, and I feel like it just overshadows people. Like kind of like to mystify Wonyoung to a point where it's like she's not even seen as human, she's seen as a goddess, and I feel like that's kind of unfair to her, because I think that provokes people to create a lot more hatred towards her, or kind of place blame when like things like Wonyoungism, if I said that right, becomes toxic for some individuals. And she's not the person she's not the person to blame. It's TikTok users and social media users who create this fantastical image about her when she's just a young woman who happens to be very beautiful, because I don't think people know that Wonyoung's funny. Like, I don't think people know that. I don't think people humanize Wonyoung enough. And, you know, it makes me sad that people don't acknowledge other parts of her. But that being said, I think she's an excellent writer. Her writing is so dreamy and mystical, and it feels like you're reading a fairy tale. Like, when the character is falling in love, it feels so fantastical. Of course, it's grounded in reality, but it feels like romance with rose-tinted glasses and snow's falling down, but the snow feels so shiny and like sparkly, and you kind of forget that the snow is actually pretty freaking cold. You know, you forget how cold snow really is because her writing is so romantic in a sense where you feel truly special. You feel beautiful when you read the perspective of the character that is talking about romance, right? I do really like her writing, and seeing how young she is, I am so excited to see what she has to offer in the future, and maybe she'll write more for the group. And there'll be several songs by Wonyoung on the group, on group comebacks, and maybe even her own solo. So I'm very excited to see where her writing journey goes, and you know, I hope that people continue to humanize that girl because she is mystified to hell. I want to talk about ITZY as my next topic. And I want to talk about how ITZY has had this narrative where ITZY has had a downfall. And there's a lot of doomerism around their existence as of right now. And I want to talk about it. I did have a video. And in fact, originally, back in August, I was going to post a concept album video for the group, but I decided that I wanted to re-record the entire thing, and it just never came to fruition, so hence why you're getting this piece, this think piece, I suppose. So ITZY is currently known as the group with the biggest downfall in K-pop or whatever. And I want to have a discussion because I don't want to chalk this up to like everyone who says that is a doomer and they think that ITZY, they only care about charts and they only care about numbers and views. I don't want to chalk that up to like only doomers because again, there's nuance to nuance. And I want to have a discussion where there's people who are genuinely worried about ITZY because, well, ITZY's not as dominant and, you know, in the media, and they're not as highly charting when they drop a mini album, and, you know, there isn't much buzz generally about them in general, apparently. I'm not sure. But I want to have discussion about this. I want to have a discussion because I do feel like there is worthy conversation about ITZY's place in the 4th gen marketplace, the 4th gen market, and especially in girl groups because, I mean, they are a girl group, but, you know, and ITZY's current status as 4th gen idols that used to, I guess, rule and be very dominant in the K-pop space pre-2022. So I do want to have a discussion because I understand that some fans are genuinely, they're happy. They're happy that ITZY's still there and they're creating music and they enjoy the musical output. But there's a sense of sorrow that I see in the fandom that ITZY is not as dominant as they used to be, and I don't think it's like doomerism, but it's very much like, wow, what happened? You know what I'm saying? So I wanna have a discussion about that, and I wanna like open the comments up to that discussion, because I do believe that I do want to acknowledge that ITZY is not like, I don't know. I do want to acknowledge that ITZY is not like the girl group that like is constantly charting. But that's okay in my opinion. I do feel like ITZY has come to a point where they've consolidated a loyal fan base that consistently, you know, comes out and shows out to support the girls, right? But I think there's this valid sorrow that a lot of fans have that the girls are not as dominant as they used to be, and they see other groups that probably debuted later thrive and be constantly talked about, while ITZY may not be. Though I'm not a Mitzi myself, but maybe that's what the fans feel. But I do feel like, in my personal opinion, Yeji's solo is a good example of how much star power and how popular the members are, and how much star power the members truly do have. Because, like, from what I remember, Yeji has a lot of views on her solo, and Air is such a good. It was such a great album. It was such a great title track. It was great. I loved Air. It shows me that ITZY never really faded. They just have a very strong fan base that doesn't require charting. Doesn't require charting to be their main mode of like success. I think they're in it for the long run, and I know that there is some melancholy that like Wannabe has, like, I don't know, like I don't know how to explain it, but it has a lot of views. That MV has a lot of views, and like the Girls Will Be Girls Comeback is struggling to get 20 million. And by the way, like their views, again, 17 million is a lot, and and I know, like if you come from an unknown company, 17 million is a lot for a small company and a group from a small company. But I guess people don't really care about that because ITZY is from a big four group, and because ITZY has the resources and the financial ability to be able to do well, I think a lot of fans are just confused on why their music videos aren't reaching a goal that the fans have. And again, I'll say that 17 million on the Girls Will Be Girls MV is a lot, but I think when the group used to be that dominant, be able to rake in all those views and was just always the talk of the town, I think it does hurt a bit when that no longer is the thing, the trend, when that's no longer a part of the fandom. So I don't want to, like, again, exclude people who genuinely feel kind of disappointed that ITZY is no longer, like, in this constant phase of being the talk of the town. And I understand it's seeing a group that was like reaching for the stars every single minute that they exist is suddenly only, plucking a star out of the sky when they feel like they need to. Because, again, I feel like they've collected enough stars. I think they're at that point in their career where they have worked to the point where they can, I don't know, I feel like they've found a loyal fan base. And I know Sneakers is kind of like, for a lot of MITZYs, the turning point that changed ITZY's public image forever. And I do believe that the perception of Sneakers does have a hand in it. But, again, I personally like Loco. I like Loco. But apparently but I like Loco, but I've seen criticism about the Loco era. And again, I'm not really like an expert on that era of ITZY in 2021. So, there seems to be like the pedestal was breaking at that point, I suppose. Though, I do feel like the reason why the girls shot up in popularity is because, again, I've heard multiple times that the girls were the first of the first girl groups to emerge from big four companies. So, and not only that, I do think that the pandemic had a lot to do with giving ITZY the amount of views and streams that they have on their YouTube videos, not YouTube, but like music videos, and and they were already propped up as the next big thing. So knowing that, again, being predecessors of TWICE, and knowing that TWICE was like that girl group, and now they have like kind of like a sister group that, majorly has a huge focus on dance, and mixed with the fact that they were propped up as the next big thing, because, again, people say that the reason why they rose to fame was because there was no other competition for the girls, so that's why they were so dominant. I do think even though there was competition by 2021 and like 2022, I do believe the girls, from what I understand, still were pretty dominant even with the competition that was present. So, I don't know. But again, I'm not an ITZY historian, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But that being said, I do think knowing that they were propped up as, the next big thing, people were watching their videos, and because people were at home and they had, they were doing it for their own safety, I think that K-pop became a huge thing that helped people get through a very dark time. And ITZY's music was pretty positive, and I think it made people feel good, and their dance moves were very, very cool, and, they were just, their songs are catchy, the dance moves were a vibe, and I think it really kept people interested because each title track was just, like, a very boppy dance track, and, again, I think that's why they did so well, is because there was a lot of environmental factors that created a lot of hype and the ability for ITZY to shine as one of the most dominant girl groups in the fourth generation at that time. So, that being said, I do think that. And by the way, I don't want to, discredit the members' skills and talents, because, that shoulder move by Ryujin is, the most iconic thing I saw when I, first started watching K-pop music videos when I was like young. So like, and plus, they're great dancers and they're pretty cool. Like, Wannabe is still like, it's a part of me. It's actually in my veins. Like, I injected the song into my veins. So yeah, so I do understand why fans are kind of feeling a bit down that ITZY is not like gravitating attention like they used to. And again, that's very valid, but I want you to remember that ITZY's doing well in their own merit, and they have a stable fan base, and I feel like you can be, I think you can acknowledge that ITZY is doing well and still feel sad that ITZY is not like, ITZY's not as known as they used to be. I don't know how to phrase it, but you can acknowledge that ITZY is still successful regardless, but you can still acknowledge and kind of mourn the time when they were like genuinely that dominant in the industry. I think that's a little bit better, but anyway, so listen to Tunnel Vision. It's a great EP. Excellent. Like, excellent work. So yeah. I'm getting to that point where the video is getting a little bit long, and I wanted to come back and kind of talk to you all before I kind of want to save this channel because I haven't posted in a while, and my channel needs it needs something to bring it back alive, and I'm clearly killing off this channel every time I decide to disappear. But that being said, I am very much busy and I'm trying my best, but I wanted to talk about all these things, but I didn't have the time or energy to create these video essays. So that being said, I might do it again in the future because, if I have other unfinished essays, I will, throw them into a K-pop opinions video so I can still talk about them, but not have to pull out 84 hours of okay, that doesn't make sense, but 84 hours of trying to edit and trying to worry about certain screenshots looking good. You know what I'm saying? At least I can talk about these things casually, and anyway. So that being said, thank you for watching this video, and I hope to get another video out this month, but I don't know. Thank you for watching this video. I'm so awkward. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to end this, but thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon and not 84 years later, and bye.